Okay, when it comes to the economy, it is a dominant theme in the stock market. Increasingly, it's a dominant theme in Ottawa, and the Liberal government facing all sorts of questions, especially on these issues like affordability. We're going to continue to see how this shakes things up, whether it's cabinet shuffles or high-profile folks with ties to the business community possibly entering the arena. Think of the former Bank of Canada Governor, Mark Carney, as we take a look at some pictures of Trudeau and Seamus O'Regan there. So not Mark Carney right there in those pictures, but I did want to bring Nik Nanos, founder and chief data scientist at Nanos Research, back into the conversation. So first of all, on the subject of maybe making some bigger shuffles, I know obviously we saw some movement from the party recently. Is there more to come? More to be watching for, or was there a big message from what they already made in terms of the changes? Well,
I think for the Liberals, they've got that, they're behind in the double digits over the Conservatives and have been for a year. Like, that's a tough trend line to turn around. And sometimes cabinet shuffles are a way to recalibrate and put a new face on things. So, the rumors about town, I'm an Ottawa guy, right? The rumors about town.
Yeah, you guys.
I just like to say, officially, I'm not in the rumors business. Okay, I'm in the stats business. But
I know you are.
Lots of scuttlebutt about a potential cabinet shuffle and discussions, and the Prime Minister has even publicly said, discussions with Mark Carney as a potential member of that cabinet. Who knows where it's at, but chatter.
How does this work for Mark Carney to enter the government? He would have to win a by-election to come in before there was a actual election race, basically?
Not necessarily. No, he could come in. I think it'd probably be more difficult for him because of the boards and other work commitments that he has to unwind those in a short period of time. Because
yes, and he has a role at Bloomberg we should disclose as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So when he thinks of those responsibilities, he would have to unwind those. That actually probably be more complicated than bringing him into cabinet.
But what do you think the messaging immediately would look like if Mark Carney came into the equation? Would it change the sentiment around the Liberal government when it comes to some of these tough economic issues?
Well, it'd definitely be a major boost within the Liberal family, so to speak, because, John, it's pretty clear that it's been a one-way exit for a lot of, like, Seamus O'Regan and other cabinet ministers. Bringing Mark Carney into the mix would show that there is a substantive, high-profile, significant individual with credibility in the business and corporate world that's interested in being part of Justin Trudeau's team.
And then in terms of bringing him into the mix, let's say hypothetically we're talking about bringing him to the mix into like some kind of file that would make sense for somebody like him, I guess, finance minister or what have you. Have you guys done any polling on that?
Yeah, well, the thing is, in research that we've done with the Globe and Mail, it suggests that people are more likely to have a positive than negative impression of him. His brand is actually stronger than Justin Trudeau's. But the thing is that, more than half of Canadians are kind of ambivalent about the potential impact of Mark Carney. So I think it would have a massive impact internally within the Liberals and would be motivating for them. It's a little too early to tell whether that would convert into any kind of bump for the Liberals among average Canadians.
I mean, at the end of the day, the bump that we have talked most about is what's happening with the Conservatives. So bring us up to speed on what the polling numbers look right now and how that new message, depending on a change in faces for the Liberals, might fare against, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, but a party that seems to have a message on the economy that is resonating more with Canadians in the day-to-day polling right now.
What's interesting for the Conservatives is their numbers have been very stable over the last year. They've basically been in the 40s. On every single occasion. With their support in the 40s and the Liberal support in the high 20s, basically the Conservatives are in majority territory. It kind of, I don't know how old you are, but do you remember 1984?
I do.
I'm not talking about the book. I'm talking about the election.
Yes.
Well, it was like the Mulroney sweep in 1984.
Yeah.
A lot of that has had to do with the Liberals looking tired, people being concerned about Justin Trudeau, but Pierre Poilievre focusing on those meat and potatoes, paying the bills types of issues.
You do see people making that comparison on social media increasingly, what happened in that election cycle. So what is the election cycle? Just out of curiosity, I'm always curious. I ask you this every time. What does the election cycle look like? I guess our default is the 2025 election. I'm not quite sure what that means or the timing of that means, but what should we be watching for?
Well, that's the very end. We should be watching for the New Democrats because they're propping up the Liberals within the House of Commons with their parliamentary arrangement. There's a by-election on the island of Montreal. The NDP could pick that up from the Liberals. That's Paul Martin's old riding. That would be absolutely psychologically crushing for the Liberals, losing Toronto, St. Paul's, and then a riding on the island. It might put wind in the sails for the NDP, potentially to pull out of the parliamentary arrangement.
Can I also just ask you about with the U.S. election cycle? Like, you hear all sorts of things about whether or not there is value in our election cycle having some parallel timing to the U.S. election cycle, depending on which party is looking to get what achieved with the voter base. How does that election, if at all, factor into how things play out here in terms of the story for Canada?
Well, first of all, a lot of Canadians are going to tune into the U.S. election, and they're going to look at the U.S. election and what they're talking about and what we're talking about here in Canada. I think the key takeaway here is not like Trump versus Kamala Harris. The key takeaway is that the economy in the U.S. is probably going to be the key battleground, right? If the U.S. economy softens, that'll be bad news for the Democrats. So that might be the lesson for the Liberals. If the Canadian economy softens, that'll be, why don't we say, even worse news for the Liberals, and they're in a tough spot already.
Okay, we only have 30 seconds left, but there is a new Canadian political party, apparently.
Yep.
This is something to track, maybe?
Canadian Futures Party? I
Yes.
think it sounds like we should be investing. Should someone be investing in that? Yeah.
All right. Is there room for another party?
I don't know. There's a whole bunch of parties. How's that?
All right.